What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of House of Bricks Live. And you hear a little energy in my voice today. We've been talking to a lot of veterans. We had our What the Truck initiative coming up on Veterans Day, but we're going to pause on the veterans for a little bit. And if you don't know, my name's Adam House. I'm the host of this House of Bricks Live. And I don't know about you, but one of my greatest ongoing studies is this. How do the top 1% operate? So when I exited my last company, I went in this deep dive of understanding guys like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, what their rituals were, decisions they made, mindsets and habits. What do they lean on when the pressure gets tough? When things get messy or when they fail, how do they respond? In the basketball world, one of the figures I keep going back to as a case study is Kobe Bryant. After his passing, I spent a ton of time revisiting his work, his obsession with detail, his relentless self-improvement, his Mamba mentality, because I believe there are lessons even outside of the game that leaders and founders can apply. Kobe, to me, really became more than just a basketball legend, and I had no idea of his work ethic really until he passed. He became a metaphor for what it means to push your own boundaries, demand excellence, and to lean into discomfort. Watching how he prepared, how he recovered, how he stayed curious, even after decades at the top. That's the kind of operating system I personally aspire to have and emulate, which brings me to today's guest. Man, you feel this energy. It's kind of like Christmas for me. Alan Stein Jr. is going to join us today, but he spent 15 years in the trenches of elite performance. He worked with NBA superstars, a couple names you may know, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. He saw up close the sacrifices, the routines, the pressure, the triumphs, and the breakdowns. And now he's applied that exact same lens to leadership, teams, organizations, and culture. So today, we're going to peel back the curtain a little bit. I want to dig deep into some pivotal moments. One of the times things didn't go according to plan, a time when he had to test, fail, learn, and grow. Alan, thanks so much for being here on the House of Bricks Live.
Oh, man, it's so great to be with you, and I really appreciate and admire your energy, and I'll do my best to match it.
I don't know if you can match it, man. I'm fired up. We're talking about a game I love, just like you, changed my life. Still, well, I don't play today, but I wish I did, but still love the game. And what I want to do is really start with your time in the world of basketball. I mean, you've trained some of the greatest players to ever step on the court. How did that chapter of your career come to be, and what did you really learn about performance and preparation?
Well, probably very similar to you. Basketball was my first love, and I fell in love with the game at 5 years old. And, here I am a few months away from turning 50, and basketball is still a major passion of my life. So, I've been able to build an extraordinary life and make a career out of something that I've been passionate about since I was a child. And again, very similar to you, I spent the first portion of my life as a very dedicated basketball player. Then when it was clear to me that I was no longer going to be able to play the game professionally, no one was going to pay my bills to put a ball in the basket, then I transitioned into being a basketball performance coach. Because around that same time, graduating college, I started to fall equally in love with strength and conditioning and mindset and nutrition and kind of all of the things that supplemented the skills of the game. So I spent the next third of my life as a basketball performance coach. And then now in my current iteration in this Act 3, I'm a corporate keynote speaker and author, but everything I share with corporate groups are the lessons and disciplines and routines that I learned from the game of basketball. So I still feel very close to the game. And, I actually chose with intention and purpose when I was in the training space to focus mostly on middle school and high school age players, because that was the age group that I felt I could have the biggest impact on off the court as well as on the court. But I was very fortunate to work at 2 high schools here in the Washington, D.C. area that had produced some really elite level players, Kevin Durant being one of them. So since I was working with really elite level high school kids, Nike took notice, and then I got to do some events for Nike. And that's when I got a chance to work the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy and the LeBron James Skills Academy, and, got to meet players like Steph Curry and kind of work alongside and work with and work around them. And as you mentioned, just kind of be an observer of what it was that, they did and made them so elite. And not just what got them to the top of the mountain, but what they did to actually stay there and sustain excellence. So it really started by me focusing on middle school and high school age players doing something that I love to do. And then those opportunities just kind of afforded themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And man, so much similarity between business and basketball. And I always talk about, sports and business, but you missed an opportunity. In 2012, there was a 32-year-old 6-foot white guy that was looking for a trainer to make the Rochester Razor Sharks with our good friend Rod Baker. But unfortunately, you can't mention my name in your introductions. But at the House of Bricks, we believe in, I'm sure Kobe Bryant would agree with this, the test, fail, learn, grow model, right? A lot of people are afraid to even test. What if it doesn't work out? They just have that analysis paralysis. They may test and then fail, and they don't like how failure feels because they don't have the right mindset, so they never do it again. So the big, opportunity is really to learn from failure. Again, I know Kobe talked a lot about that. Failure is a great teacher in life. And once you learn, that's that opportunity to grow. So we ask every guest this, to share a real world story through this test, fail, learn, grow model. So can you take us back to a specific moment in your life or your career where you tested something that didn't go your way, but it ultimately became a catalyst for your growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny because I had to really whittle the list down. I mean, I've got a pretty long list of things, both personally and professionally. I mean, starting with the fact that I'm divorced, which on some level means a marriage failed. But in the professional context, one that pops up is, in 2019, I wrote my first book. It was called Raise Your Game. I've always written the books that I need to read myself. I find it both therapeutic and liberating to write about and kind of research and study the very things that I'm trying to improve. And, for a non-famous, non-celebrity first-time author, Raise Your Game did fairly well. I mean, I don't sell millions of books, but that was never the goal. The goal was to learn how to organize my thoughts and share my perspective and put something out in the world that others would find helpful. And that went fairly well. Then I wrote a follow-up book called Sustain Your Game, that while I still think it's actually a better work, it's a better book, commercially and sales-wise did awful. I mean, what wasn't anywhere close to the first one. And I've come to learn, and this is partially speculation, but I think it's pretty accurate. It mostly had to do with the title. Sustain is just not a sexy word. It's not really a word that pulls people in. Now, raise and elevate, those are words that draw people in. And even though the book was very accurate, because I was trying to write about, when you reach a certain level of excellence or mastery or performance, how can you sustain that for long periods of time and manage your stress and not get stagnant and not get burnt out? I've always been really interested in and admiring of the folks that can stay at the top of their craft, not just for years, but for decades. And that was really the impetus of that book. And I fought really hard to make sure that Sustain Your Game was the title. And as I said, sustain is an accurate word, but it's just not a really good word. So that, unfortunately, book did not do very well, kind of severed the interest the publisher had in me for doing a third book. So I have written a third book, but I found a new publisher to do it. So yeah, it kind of stinks to come out of the gate and do something that was received and then feel like you're going to follow that up and be even better. And it didn't quite work out that way. But I learned so many lessons from that. I took full responsibility and accountability over titling that. And now I've got a new book coming out in November called Next Play, which really speaks to the premise of when something doesn't go your way, don't dwell on it, just move on to the next play.
I love that. I'm still waiting on my copy.
I know it's actually sitting here right now. I'm doing a massive mail out this weekend. I'm hiring all 3 of my teenage kids. I'm paying them to help me stuff some bubble mailers and put some cards in the mail. So it is coming. I promise you, no one else has gotten theirs either. So it's not just you. That's
startup life right there. You got the kids, packing. So I love this, man. That's how. So funny. So when you look back, and again, I can empathize with you here in terms of like building your personal brand. People that, it doesn't matter what you've done or what you've accomplished, unless you're Shaq or somebody like that. Like, it's the most difficult thing to do that I've ever done. And I've realized, you know, the name of the show is The House of Bricks, but I also realized that everyone around you lives in a house of glass. You know, they're just like wondering, hey, why'd you do that? How come you didn't do it this way? It's like, well, how's your personal brand going? Right. So I certainly, you know, I would say underestimated the degree of difficulty that comes with building your personal brand. What were some of the things that you underestimated, and what did you learn from that?
What I didn't do a very good job of was kind of asking a variety of different people and then being a really good listener. I was very hell-bent on, this needs to be the title, this is the way that it needs to go. And that very narrow perspective is ultimately what bit me in the backside. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you're going to start a business, you're an entrepreneur and you're going to come up with a new product, you need to make sure you're in touch with the future customers or clients who are going to use that and get as much feedback from them as possible. That's where, you know, feedback is incredibly helpful. You know, and had I asked, you know, a wide swath of people that I know and that I trust and that I know would tell me the truth, I think most of them would have agreed that Sustain Your Game is just not a great title for that book. And I probably would have named it something else. And now that book came out in 2022. So kind of on the heels of the height of the pandemic, which the subtitle of the book is How to Manage Stress, Avoid Stagnation, and Beat Burnout, which are three really hot button topics, or at least they were in 2022. And had I named the book or titled the book after something like that, one of those things, I actually think the book would have done really well, because people were feeling stressed and stagnant and burnt out. So it really was my inability to listen and my inability to consider other options, because I had the blinders on. And that, I think, is the biggest lesson that I pull from it. But at the same time, and I say this with a huge smile, that's just where I was at that point in time. Like I lacked some awareness and I lacked some tools. And I've forgiven my previous self for that. I don't want you or your viewers to think I cry myself to sleep at night because a book I wrote 4 years ago didn't do well. It's not a big deal. I'm proud of the book that I put out. I learned a very valuable lesson. I made sure not to repeat that lesson on the third book. And I'm a better man for having made that mistake.
Well, I love that. And you know, I always say, well, and I read it in the Bible, but wisdom is, you know, found in the counsel of many. So whether you're Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or an author, a keynote speaker, startup founder, top CEO, whatever it is, we all need advisors in life, because coaches and trainers and advisors, like they're able to see things that you can't see when you're in the game. Like, why on earth would Kobe Bryant need you to help him, or, you know, Michael Jordan, Tim Grover? It's because those guys, you know, they share the same mindset, but they're able to see things and hold you accountable in ways that it's almost impossible to do on your own. Even though those guys were extremely committed to their craft, you have to have people that are able to see, and their improvements are micro improvements. It's not like we're talking, you know, inches and centimeters, not, you know, big swings, but it's that, you know, coach or advisor that can see what it is that you need to do to get better and make those micro improvements. So how did that experience, how is it shaping your work today?
Well, it just reminds me to stay open, as you just said, to the counsel of many. But with that said, it's not like, I regret just not walking, you know, through the mall, asking a bunch of random people what they think. Like, I would have still a very select group of people who I would trust. You know, I would ask colleagues and friends of mine that have written books, that have some experience in that space. I would ask my friends that are in the publishing world who have put out books. You know, it's very similar to the folks you just mentioned. You know, it's my opinion that Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter that's ever played the game of basketball. So with that being said, there's a finite number of people that even have the acumen to help him improve his shot or his offensive ability. He's not taking the counsel of anybody that just shows up at the game as a fan. He's got a very narrow group of people that he would trust to do that. So the reason I say that is every decision I make in my life, I don't put out, a Facebook or a LinkedIn survey for everyone to weigh in their options, because I'm not interested in what a lot of those folks, but any really important decision I make in my life now, I make sure that I don't make it in a silo and I don't make it by myself. I give some thought and some context to the decision that I need to make. And then I do ask for counsel from the people that I know and respect and trust will tell me the truth. And that's how I try and move forward now. So of course, what I choose to eat for lunch, well, that's my decision and I'll stand by it. But if I'm going to take any big swing in life or do anything, that's really, really important or could have grave consequences if it doesn't go well, I absolutely want to ask I'll just call them my board of directors.
I'm going to go off script here a little bit because I know you're a good guy to have this conversation with. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. We're just going to put that aside. If you're going to agree with that, or I'm ending the episode. So I'm just not going to let you answer. And then LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. Let's talk about those two players. And if you had to pick one, which one would it be?
So you're saying if I'm a GM and I've got to pick a team, and we're going to assume that both are in their prime at the time that I'm picking them?
Yes.
I'll probably take Kobe, but it's going to be by a hair. What's always difficult in any of these discussions is it's almost the inference that if you like one player better, then you're throwing some shade on the other person. I mean, I'm with you that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, but I can say that and simultaneously Kobe and LeBron being once of generation players, both arguably on the Mount Rushmore of all time, can still be true simultaneously.
Yeah.
I would probably take Kobe, but it wouldn't be by a landslide, because I think the world of LeBron, I think with his longevity and what he's been able to bring to the table is remarkable. But Kobe was a killer.
Yeah, and I'm not a LeBron. Hey, I lived in Miami, when he was on the Heat with the big three. But at the end of the day, Kobe's number two in my mind. It's just when you think about his ability to show up in the big games. I mean, scoring 81 points in one game. Like, I just watch that. Sometimes you can see every basket. It takes 10, 12 minutes to watch the 81 points that he has. But his compete level was just through the roof, the preparation. So I just wanted to have that conversation with you. And I think Steph Curry's in my top 5 too. I'm just his versatility and ability to score from all over the floor. But anyway, just love that conversation. So just a couple questions for you. Even in some of these guys we've talked about today, what really separates, and when I say high performers, everyone in the NBA is a high performer. So we'll call it the elite, top 10% in the NBA. Is it talent? Is it mindset? Is it their daily routine? What separates the elite?
Yes, and yes. It's a healthy combination of all of them. I mean, certainly to get to that level, you have to have a certain level of talent. You have to have a certain level of athleticism and physical characteristics. Certainly you can point occasionally to someone who made the NBA that didn't quite fit the prototype. But those guys, and even to their own admission, were all born with inordinate amount of talent and physical prowess. But there's a lot of guys that were. So that's not enough by itself. Talent is never enough by itself. So then, yes, mindset is a huge separator, and just kind of their approach. But then start to come in other things, like you mentioned, their habits, their discipline, their ability to focus and block out all the other noise, their consistency. And this is the stuff that I preach and teach on stage and on page all of the time, because this is the stuff that guys like you and I can implement in every area of our life. I mean, we can be incredibly disciplined in the decisions we make. We can do things consistently. And if those are superpowers, and yet those are actually choices and decisions that people make, then that means they're readily available to everyone. Being 6'8" isn't readily available to everyone. Being able to, jump over the rim isn't available to everyone. But making disciplined decisions consistently is absolutely available to every single one of us walking the earth. And those folks just choose to do that, with just kind of a relentless pursuit of excellence. And those are the traits that I really try and live by and model in my own life, because they're controllable. And for me, it's unacceptable to not give your best in the areas that are controllable. And really that's our attitude and our effort, if you really want to break it down. And that's even what I talk to, when I do talk to some athletes and some coaches, is like, hey, if you're going to lose, don't lose because of something you had control over. Don't ever lose because you were underprepared or you were out of shape, or, don't lose because you didn't give a good enough effort, or you were being selfish. Like, if you're going to lose for another reason that's outside of your control, but don't lose for things that you have control over. And I think the same thing in our daily lives.
Yeah, and you definitely have to start with the talent, right? You and I could do Michael Jordan's jumping workout for the rest of our lives, and we're never going to have a 46-inch vertical.
I think I did as a teenager. I think I did try to model it, and it didn't quite stick.
I had the strength shoes. Remember those with the big platforms on them? We were doing anything as 6-foot guys trying to, dunk the basketball, really try anything.
Do you know how fortunate you and I are that we didn't tear an Achilles or a calf by wearing those things? Like, I don't, the reason you don't see people wearing those today, they probably weren't the safest invention of all time, but I wore those religiously for like 3 straight years.
Could not have been good for your back, like anything, right? Standing on a platform, and I'd run up the bleachers on the football stadium in platform shoes. And my brother and I would even play. We would even play one-on-one with the strength shoes on. So it was just.
What's funny is, even though we can say that now with a smile and a chuckle because we have more information, what I will applaud for both of us and anyone else that used them, like at the time, we believed that would give us the best advantage to improving our athleticism and our explosiveness. And we dove in and we gave it the best effort we could. I mean, think about that. As ridiculous as it may sound now at our current age, I mean, you're wearing those shoes in the hot summer days, running up and down bleachers because you were so dedicated to working on your craft and being the best you can. So I'm not making fun of the younger version of us for having tried that. I actually admire the younger version of us for going all in. It's just funny now looking back at it because those shoes are kind of ridiculous. But the effort, the dedication, the consistency, all of that was there. And I think, we should be proud of that.
Yeah, all the personal training and gimmicks has gone crazy. I think how I learned to shoot was watching Steve Alfred's video with the broom on the chair, in the driveway, shooting over that. So progress can be made. A lot of progress can be made by actually doing less, not more, is what I've seen, just kind of taking away those things. But moving on to, kind of the business world, you've worked with world-class teams, sports and business. What are some of the biggest similarities and differences that you've seen in how businesses and sports teams build culture?
Culture, the way I define culture, it's an alignment between your beliefs and your behaviors. So if you as an organization are saying, this is our vision, this is our mission, these are our core values, then your culture is determined by how well your people live and model those things. If you on all of your t-shirts and paintings on all of your walls, you have all of these core values and no one in the organization is doing any of those things, then you have a really bad culture. But if people are actually living and modeling and breathing those things every day, then you have a great culture. So it's just trying to get an alignment and congruency between beliefs and behaviors and the experience that people have either being on your team or being a client or customer that your team serves. And really that's what I try and help organizations with. Get crystal clear on what you believe and then put systems in place to make sure that's what everyone's doing on a daily basis. And a good portion of what needs to be put in place is role clarity. Everybody on the team has to know their role, has to embrace their role, and has to star in their role. And then everyone else on the team has to respect, appreciate, and value everybody else's role. You have to have a huge culture of accountability. So, I need to care enough about you to call you out if I don't see you living up to our standards or our core values. And then I need to be humble enough to allow you to call me out if you don't see me doing the same. So accountability has to be looked at as a gift. It's the best gift you can give a teammate is to hold them to a high standard. And then the third component is you have to have really effective communication. World-class organizations have great communication. They have it from top down. They have it horizontally. They have it in written communication. They have it in oral and spoken communication. Like, they're able to transfer their message accurately because it's something that they value, and they value speaking the truth. They value, having hard conversations, because that's what great teams do.
I'm imagining you walking into a company, and this is where basketball kind of fits in, right? You're playing one-on-one or pickup ball. Like, you're sizing up that opponent. When you walk into a company, what do you look for to really get a read on how they're doing things?
I look at the leader immediately, or series of leaders. It's not always just a singular person, because everything starts and stops with leadership. If I were to notice a leader and they're not doing all of the things that the mission and the vision and the core values, then there's minimal chance that the team's going to do them. So I would always start looking at the top and seeing what is being modeled for everyone else, what is being expected of the person that's at the top. And then that would give me some semblance of an idea of how that will trickle down to everybody else.
Self-leadership is the best form of leadership. And so that's obviously a great place for that to start. Just kind of transitioning here into, from sports to business, which we're already doing. What's one thing, and you can pick one, whether it's Kobe, Kevin Durant, or Steph Curry, that you saw in their preparation or how they competed? One thing that you saw that every entrepreneur leader should be applying to their own work.
Well, one of the lessons I learned from Steph was how important your standard is. I know there's a variety of different quotes out there. Some are from the Navy SEALs. Some of them might even be from someone like Tony Robbins. But it's basically you get what you accept, and you'll get the standard that you set for yourself. So if you want to improve any area of your life, the first thing you need to do is you need to raise your standard for whatever that area is. And Steph, when I first met him at the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy in 2007, he was one of the college counselors. He had set a standard for himself that he wasn't going to end the workout until he swished 5 free throws in a row. And, you're a fellow basketball player and a great shooter. Like, that's a pretty high standard. I mean, yep. Making 5 in a row for many players would be a high enough standard, but for Steph, that wasn't good enough. He had to swish 5 in a row, which, think about it. I mean, you could swish 4 in a row, hit just a little bit of the rim on the 5th one. It would still go in. You'd still be 5 for 5, but he'd start over because that wasn't his standard. And I don't think it ever took him longer than 15 minutes to swish 5 in a row. But it just reminded me that, that type of standard done consistently is one of the reasons he's the best shooter the game's ever seen. And the moral of that story is not to tell everyone to set unrealistic, gargantuan standards. You need to set standards that are appropriate for you at where you are. And then your standards need to evolve as you get better. I never asked him about it. I'm going to assume that Steph didn't have the standard of 5 swishes in a row when he was 8 years old. Maybe he had a standard of make 2 free throws before I go home. And then when he got to high school, maybe it was, make 5 or make 10. And then, maybe in college at Davidson, it was swish 3 in a row. I'm completely speculating, but I'm assuming that he's always had a standard, and that standard has evolved as he's gotten better. And that's really the takeaway that I want folks to have is, get crystal clear on a standard that becomes a non-negotiable for you, and, just implement that every single day.
Coach Baker's favorite was 8-10 with the foul shots. You had to make 8 out of 10, or it was suicides until you die. So you're feeling that. You missed the first one the entire time. You're just like, I got to make 9 in a row, 7 in a row, 5 in a row. It'll get you. But they compete at everything, right? I mean, they have a standard, measure performance. We talk a lot about resilience in the House of Bricks, and being a fellow basketball player, bricks are not good in basketball.
Yes.
But it's kind of a paradox just tying in, the basketball and my last name, but we really believe that you have a choice with everything that happens to you in life. And the experiences are like bricks. You can either carry them with you and they weigh you down, or you can lay them down and build a strong foundation, turning those obstacles into stepping stones. How did these guys process failure that in a way that enabled them to turn those bricks into stepping stones?
Well, they just never looked at failure as permanent. I know that when I was growing up, that was one of my biggest limitations. Was I was so fearful of failure and felt that it was permanent that I tried to avoid it at all costs. And that's the exact opposite approach. You almost need to become friends with failure and understand that failure is never permanent. It's a learning opportunity, and that you should be stretching yourself and attempting things that are almost going to increase the chance that you're going to fail or fall short. So to me, it's just kind of the relationship with the word and what it means. If you look at failure as the be all end all, that's going to really, hurt your chances of being able to move forward and progress. If you just look at it as a minor speed bump, just a minor door that was closed, and now you just got to find another way, and you have that kind of lighter attitude about it, where you just quickly move on to the next play, no matter what just happened, then you're going to be much better off. And I've really tried to unlearn and relearn that relationship I've had with failure, my entire life. So now it's something that I'm okay with, because it's never over. It's not permanent.
I was the same way. I hated to lose, and my compete a lot of times came out of the fear of feeling the loss. Like I was ready to, I am not going to lose this game, and that will get you to a certain level, but there's burnout and you are going to lose. And then how do you process it? So just listening to these guys and understanding them, listening to what you're saying, it is really a mindset shift. And we're getting close to the end here, and I appreciate all your time here. This is—
I'll share one thing on that, and I know you appreciate this as a basketball guy. One of the things when I'm talking with players now is you have to teach them how to miss. And I say that with a smile and a wink, because obviously the name of the game is put the ball in the basket. And that's what every player wants to do. That's what every coach wants them to do. And if they're a fan of your team, that's what they want you to do. But as you already know, even someone that is a world-class shooter misses half of their shots approximately. And the first, from a 3-point line, you're going to miss 6 out of 10 shots, and you're still a Hall of Fame level shooter. So if we already know that no matter how much we work, no matter how much we practice, no matter how much we pour into it, we're still going to miss half of every shots that we take, then I want to start teaching players how to be able to be incredibly resilient and bounce back from those misses, to not let those misses affect them. Because the player that can move to the next play, and the player that can have a higher bounce back ratio after a miss, is going to be more successful in the long run. So, I want a player, certainly if I'm coaching, I don't want my player to miss 5 shots in a row. But if they do miss 5 shots in a row, I certainly don't want those 5 misses to have a negative impact on the 6th shot. I want them to shoot that 6th shot with the same confidence and optimism as if they had made the previous 5. So that's why I say, with a smile and a wink, players need to learn how to miss. They need to learn how to untether and just completely let go. And that was something that always held me back as a player. It was a self-imposed limitation. I'd miss 2 or 3 shots in a row, and I'd start to get down. I'd start to get frustrated. I'd start to be hesitant on the next shot, because I was already thinking, well, what if I miss this one? Now I've missed 4 in a row. What's everybody going to think if I've missed 4 in a row? And then, of course, I'm less likely to make that 4th shot because of my mindset. So teaching players how to miss, and we can say that in air quotes, entrepreneurs need to learn how to miss. Executives need to learn how to miss. Anybody in any area of life needs to learn how to miss if they ever want to get good at what they're doing.
My mindset was always next one's going in. So catch and shoot. Yeah. So before we get into kind of the wrap up, I'm going to ask you one more question, which is whether it's, again, business guys, pro athletes, whoever you've been around, when they are in their darkest moment, whether it's Kobe with his Achilles, you pick the experience. I don't want to lead you. How do they get themselves out? Because I've been a leader. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, but I've had some dark moments, deep valleys, and everyone's looking at you still because you have the leadership title. How do you get yourself, how do you get yourself out of that situation?
Well, the first thing you do is you give yourself some grace and space to be human, and you acknowledge that whatever you're feeling is okay. Now, it's not always your preference, but it's okay to not be okay. And we have every feeling and every emotion in our palette for a reason. And it's okay to sit with the very unpleasant ones and the uncomfortable ones. And if you can learn how to kind of sit with them instead of trying to resist them or ignore them or suppress them, just sit with it. You suffer an Achilles injury, that is devastating for an athlete. And it's okay for you to be upset. It's okay for you to be disappointed. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to, punch a pillow, like whatever you need to do, that part is okay. And then just sit with it. And then once you're at a state where you can say, all right, now what's the next decision that I can make to help inch me forward? Like what's a decision that I can make to make this just a little bit better, a little bit more palatable? So it's not about forcing any type of toxic positivity. It's not about suck it up, buttercup, you'll be fine. It's just a matter of allowing yourself to feel how you feel, give yourself that grace and space, and then have the stick-to-itiveness and the resiliency to say, I don't love how I'm feeling. I'm not excited about this circumstance, but I'm in control of the response. And to me, everything in life comes down to our responses, which we are always in control of. And, some things are easier to respond to than others. It's a little easier to respond to losing a game than it is to tearing your Achilles. But in both cases, you get to choose how to respond. But that response doesn't always have to just be a knee-jerk reaction. Doesn't have to be, will just be positive or something great's going to come of this. You'll get to that stage at some point. But when you're in the darkness, as you mentioned, and you're in the mud, I just think you need to let yourself be.
Yeah. It's always darkest before the dawn, right? Like you just have to know that there is somehow light at the end of the tunnel. And I love what you said, and this is something I need to work on, is realize that you are human, and it's not an ego thing. It's just we're high performers. We want to perform. And just to add to that is people around high performers, they need to realize that those people are human also. Like that type of spotlight, that type of pressure over that amount of time, it's people are human. So you got to give yourself grace and also give people around you grace. Well, we could really go on for a couple hours, but I'm not going to do that to you. This has been amazing. I'm excited. I want to go out and shoot hoops right now. Just going down memory lane here. But right now, I know you mentioned the book, but tell us, what you're up to now. And again, we talked about the book, but if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you? And
awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun for me, man. I'll do this anytime you want to do it. Love talking hoops, but more importantly, love talking life and business and where all of these things kind of intersect and relationships and all that kind of stuff. Really, the main hub for everything that I've got going on is just alansteinjr.com. That'll share everything you need to know about my speaking programs and keynotes and workshops, as well as links to my current books, as well as the one you can see above my shoulder, Next Play, that will come out on November 4th, which folks can pre-order now. Also has links to all of my social handles and channels. I love being very responsive and accessible on social. So if someone, enjoyed what you and I talked about and they want to keep the conversation going or ask a question, just shoot me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn or something like that. But this was a lot of fun, man. Love the work that you're doing. And we both have some pretty cool neon signs above our head. I got to say, that's very classy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the sign. And again, just been great having you on. I probably, as you were wrapping up, you're like, not just basketball business. I got sucked into the basketball vacuum. We barely talked any business, but
It's all transferable and it all has high utility. So you and I can literally talk for 2 hours on basketball, and I guarantee you that 90% of our conversation is applicable to business, and it's applicable to life. That's the reason I love this work so much.
Me too. And that's why I feature athletes on the show, right? Because people look at, oh, Kobe Bryant, he never struggled. Look at him. Like they struggle every day. Like it's just, and that applies to business, entrepreneurship. We talk about with our veterans transitioning from the battlefield to the boardroom. It's a war. You're putting your helmet on. You're going through it now, even building your personal brand. You're the product. So you want to talk about rejection, mindset. What if people don't like what I say? You're not selling software. It's, do people want to hear what Alan has to say and read what he wants to write? So you're doing a great job. I've checked out your content on Instagram, even sent it to my 4 sons, all sent it to them as well. So just been really great having you on today. Everybody, thank you for joining us on the House of Bricks Live. We're going to continue to feature best in class people like Alan, CEOs, founders, veterans, athletes. We're here to inspire you through our failures and turning obstacles into stepping stones. So thank you everybody for joining us on House of Bricks Live. And if you haven't subscribed to our Substack newsletter, please check it out. All right, everybody, we'll see you soon. Thank you.